Welcome to The Debate, where we turn the competitive intensity of the Star Ladder Budapest Major 2025 into a rigorous intellectual exchange. Stage 1 is in the books, and now the critical task begins: building our predictive models, our pick'ems for the next 2 Swiss stages, and of course, the crucial playoffs bracket.
Right. This is exactly the moment where the rubber meets the road. We're moving past, the initial chaos and into the true gauntlet of the major. The quality of competition shifts entirely, and that demands a fundamental recalculation of our initial assumptions.
Absolutely. And, well, that brings us to the core tension we have to resolve for any successful pick'em model. To what degree should the demonstrated tournament momentum from Stage 1, I'm talking specifically those impressive 3-0 advancements, influence our predictions for Stage 2 and Stage 3 success versus, relying purely on established organizational pedigree and historical Tier 1 invite status?
My position is anchored in caution. I argue that Stage 1 results are often artificially inflated. It's due to the heavy reliance on best-of-1 matches and just a generally lower tier of opposition. So for Stages 2 and 3, the jump in competitive density, it just necessitates a highly conservative predictive approach. We should be favoring 3-1 or 3-2 advancement outcomes for almost everyone, reserving that elusive 3-0 spot for only the absolute elite Stage 3 favorites, like Spirit or Vitality.
I hold that position to be overly risk-averse. Momentum isn't just a statistical anomaly, it is a profound mental edge. Demonstrated dominance from Stage 1 qualifiers like M80 and FlyQuest provides the strongest immediate indicators for Stage 2 success. When a team advances 3-0 with robust round differentials, they have hit what Leiko called a new level of CS. You have to aggressively back that form, especially when you're looking for those high-value 3-0 slots in the pick'ems, which, separates an expert card from an average one. So let's establish why I place so much faith in the early data. My position relies on Stage 1 providing essential real-time data points showing exactly who is performing at peak right now. Look at FlyQuest, 3-0 with an exceptional plus 32 round differential. M80 was right behind them at 3-0 plus 23. And they did this by avoiding the pitfalls of the best-of-3 elimination series entirely. So when FlyQuest's Regali is stating publicly, "This is the best FlyQuest and it's getting even better," that confidence, it translates directly into clutch factor and map pool depth in the next stage. For Stage 2, I'm putting high confidence on these teams alongside established invites like Natus Vincier and Team Liquid to push for a quick 3-0 progression. And conversely, teams that showed severe pressure points, Legacy admitting pressure overwhelmed them, or Fluxo citing a shallow map pool, they've shown a strategic or mental flaw that will be exploited brutally in Stage 2. That makes them prime 0-3 elimination fodder. We have to trust the proven momentum.
I come at this from a different angle, one that's rooted in recognizing the structural vulnerability of the Swiss format itself, which, Snappy critically labeled the worst for the biggest event. Stage 2 fundamentally changes the dynamics. You're taking Bo 1 dominators and immediately pitting them against Tier 1 invites, teams like Astralis, Aurora Gaming, and MIBR, whose map preparation and strategic depth in a Bo 3 are, exponentially higher. I simply don't buy that 80's plus 23 against the Stage 1 field translates directly into the confidence needed to 3-0 Liquid or Na'Vi. And furthermore, we saw how fragile the Stage 1 system made even elite teams. FaZe Clan and Imperial Esports struggled into 3-2 finishes. Frozen admitted he was merely relieved to advance. Their map pool issues, their strategic struggles, that all suggests their Stage 2 journey will be a tight, grueling grind, pushing them inherently towards 3-2 finishes. So, my core pick philosophy for the Stage 1 survivors in Stage 2 is centered entirely around that 3-2 advancement slot. And for 0-3 elimination, I'm looking towards invited teams, Tylo, 3D Max, whose Stage 2 seeding rests on rankings rather than recent proven landform. Okay, let's transition right into the mechanics of the pick'ems then. Contention 1, the integrity and viability of 3-0 picks in Stage 2. If you are predicting only 3-2 for the Stage 1 survivors, you are abandoning the high-value potential these teams represent. You have to tell me why FlyQuest, who just showed incredible depth on maps like Anubis and Vertigo, will suddenly drop 2 matches when they only need to win 1 clean bow 3. Lake's insistence that M80 is at a new level suggests they've solved fundamental issues. I'm predicting FlyQuest maintains their 3-0 streak into Stage 2 because their form is peaking right now. How do you bet against that kind of momentum and swagger? That's a compelling point, and I do respect the swagger argument. But let's be precise about the matchups. You are asking FlyQuest or M80 to execute a 3-0 run against a field that potentially includes 2 of the following: Na'Vi, Liquid, Astralis, or Aurora. The path to 3-0 requires beating an elite team in the 2-0 advancement match. That's a guaranteed bow 3. Can M80, based on their limited Stage 1 bow 3 experience, cleanly take down a structurally disciplined Na'Vi featuring B1T and W0 Wonderful over 3 maps? I'm skeptical. I believe their path through Stage 2 will inevitably include a tactical loss against one of the top seeds, forcing them into a difficult 3-1 or 3-2 outcome. We reserve 3-0 predictions for the teams that have consistently proven they can survive high-pressure, multi-stage bow 3 series, and those teams, with very few exceptions, they enter in Stage 3. I predict Liquid, Astralis, and Aurora will all stumble once, forcing 3-1 finishes. But my high-confidence 3-0 pick for Stage 2, it remains only Na'Vi.
I agree, Na'Vi is the safest bet for 3-0 in Stage 2, particularly given their recent success on maps like Ancient. However, just dismissing M80's 3-0 potential is, I think, a mistake. They showed a mastery of the overpass meta in Stage 1 that many of the Stage 2 invites might not have accounted for in their prep. If M80 gets a favorable early draw, avoids the absolute top 2, they could easily ride that confidence wave. My 3-0 picks are Na'Vi and, as a high-risk, high-reward move, M80.
I understand the impulse to chase the high points I do, but that impulse is often what ruins a card. I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because M80's overpassed win came against teams that fundamentally struggled with anti-stratting. When M80 meets a Liquid, they will face a depth of analysis that Stage 1 opponents simply didn't possess. I predict those Stage 1 survivors who struggled, FaZe and Imperial, to grind through 3-2, demonstrating resilience over pure dominance.
Now that we've discussed the ceiling of Stage 2, let's look at the floor. If we can nail a 0-3 exit, that saves us 3 valuable pick'em points. So who is the most vulnerable team in Stage 2?
Well, the most vulnerable teams for 0-3 exit are not the struggling qualifiers, but often the invited teams who suffer from organizational instability or complacency. I look squarely at Tylo and 3D Max. Tylo's seeding relies on historic regional strength, but their current roster has endured 3 changes in the last 4 months. This turbulence means their team chemistry is suspect, and their map pool coordination, which is critical for the first 2 BO1s, will be shaky against battle-hardened teams like Fnatic or B8. If Tylo loses their first 2 BO1s, they face an immediate bow 3 elimination against a Stage 1 team peaking in form. 3D Max, while European, lacks the recent high-tier LAN success to justify their seeding. I think these are easier targets for 0-3 than a team like FaZe, who, while struggling, has the experience of Karrigan to clutch out at least 1 win.
I see why you think that, focusing on the structural instability of the invites. But let me give you a different perspective, focusing instead on the internal, admitted fragility of the Stage 1 survivors, who just barely scraped by. Legacy Sadzin flatly admitted the mental pressure overwhelmed him. Fluxo cited their shallow map pool. This tells us that the pressure of the Major fundamentally broke their strategic approach. While Legacy is out, Imperial and FaZe Clan advanced 3-2, while admitting they were playing poorly. If Imperial, for example, draws Na'Vi and Liquid early, their already thin map pool becomes fatally exposed. They haven't had time to fix the issues that made their journey a 3-2 struggle. I project one of the Stage 1 survivors who barely advanced, like Imperial, falling out 0-3 in Stage 2, because the structural difficulty of Stage 2 invites is just too great for a team currently playing below its potential. The psychological damage from a rough Stage 1 entry could quickly manifest as a Stage 2 collapse.
That's a genuine risk. Yeah. If a team like Imperial, relying heavily on Vinny and Tri, hits 2 Elite Bow 1s and then has to play a Bow 3 elimination match against an M80 peaking on Overpass, they could absolutely lose steam. However, I maintain that the invites with questionable recent form, like Tylo, are still easier targets for a 0-3 prediction simply because they haven't had the forced recent tournament experience of Stage 1 to iron out their internal issues. It's a debate between, exposed fragility versus untested instability.
Agreed, it's a necessary dichotomy to analyze. Now, shifting gears entirely, let's discuss Contention 3, predicting the top seeds, the 3 zeros for Stage 3 and the subsequent playoff bracket implications. This stage is the true elite. Furia, Vitality, Falcons, Spirit, G2, Maus. Right, this is the tightest stage, where a single Bow 1 loss could send a team spiraling into that difficult 3-2 elimination path. Based on recent success and the sheer consistency provided by players like Donk and Shiro, Team Spirit is the clearest, safest 3-0 favorite to enter the playoffs as the top seed. They have the deep map pool and the structural discipline required to bypass the Swiss system quickly. They define the high-confidence 3-0 pick for Stage 3. This is not just a prediction, it's an empirical statement on their organization's capacity to minimize errors.
I would frame the Stage 3 challenge differently. While Spirit is phenomenal, Stage 3 is where the major pressure truly hits maximum velocity. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that any team is safe for 3-0 here. Look at teams like G2 or Falcons. They possess massive individual peaks, Nico, Hunter, but both organizations have demonstrated reoccurring, exploitable structural weaknesses. It often manifests in inconsistent T-side execution on key maps like Inferno or Ancient. G2 specifically has struggled against aggressive mid-round calls, making them highly prone to a shock Bow 1 loss early on. This forces them into a difficult 3-1 or 3-2 route. I predict no team achieves 3-0 in Stage 3, resulting in a tight cluster of 3-1 and 3-2 finishes.
But if you accept that scenario, the technical implications for the playoff bracket are enormous, and that's where the importance of Stage 1 momentum actually comes back. If the top cluster finishes 3-1, the playoff top seed is determined entirely by round differential. FlyQuest's plus 32 from Stage 1 actually becomes a statistically crucial edge if they advance, because they minimize their round losses in the early going. Spirit will fight for that top spot based on their Stage 3 round differential, but if G2 or Falcons finish 3-1, their position relative to a 3-1 Stage 2 survivor who had an excellent round differential could be surprisingly close.
That is a crucial insight. The volatility of Stage 3 finishing 3-1 means the playoff bracket seeding becomes unstable, and that massively increases the upset potential. I mean, consider Furia and Maus. Furia's hyper-aggressive style makes them a fascinatingly volatile pick. They could steamroll to 3-1 or just crash hard 2-3 if their aggression is anti-strated. Maus, however, is a model of calculated depth. I predict Maus will achieve a safe 3-1 finish based on their systematic approach, setting them up better than a team like G2, who relies on higher variance.
And that volatility is precisely why I prioritize Spirit for 3-0. They are the only team in that Stage 3 cohort whose structure minimizes both map pool risk and reliance on individual variance. If they don't hit 3-0, they are easily 3-1 with an immaculate round differential. If the whole stage is 3-1, as you suggest, we get Stage 2 survivors who have gone through 3 successive Swiss stages, including 2 difficult Bow 3 runs, entering the playoffs against those Stage 3 teams who might have only played 1 Bow 3.
Exactly, and that resilience is invaluable. A Stage 2 qualifier who survived the Bow 3 gauntlet like an Imperial or a FaZe enters the quarterfinals with maximum match readiness. They could absolutely cause an upset against the Stage 3 invite that maybe finished 3-1 but felt a little too comfortable.
This scenario, it validates my cautious approach. Predict the grind, and you predict the volatility. To summarize my position, the data from Stage 1 clearly shows which teams are mentally prepared and statistically dominant right now. FlyQuest with their plus 32 differential and M80 are strong contenders for high seeds or the 3-0 slot in Stage 2, justifying high confidence predictions based on momentum. For Stage 3 and the ensuing playoff bracket, Team Spirit remains the safest bet for a high seed, likely 3-0, due to organizational depth and individual talent. Momentum, when it's clearly defined by statistics, must outweigh purely historical pedigree in the short run of the Swiss system.
Intellectual disagreement sharpens understanding, as always. We agree on the importance of individual talent and organizational depth, but we fundamentally disagree on the impact of the Swiss format pressure on Stage 1 survivors. Stages 2 and 3 will be defined by incredibly narrow margins. Therefore, successful pick'ems must reflect the difficulty of the grind, favoring 3-2 advances for the survivors like FaZe and Imperial, and exercising extreme caution against easy 3-0 predictions for anyone outside of Spirit and Na'Vi. The format at the end of the day demands strategic resilience over early dominance.
The challenge of predicting a major truly lies in balancing that momentary, explosive momentum against proven long-term tier stability. There remains much to analyze, especially as Stage 2 kicks off tomorrow, with critical opening matches like Astralis versus NiP and 3D Max versus Fnatic.
The results of those initial BO1s will immediately test both of our hypotheses. We look forward to seeing how these narratives play out on the server.